Hey there people, how you doing? So today we have kind of an interesting camera comparison here because it's the Note 20 Ultra versus the OnePlus 8 Pro. It's basically the best of Samsung versus the best of OnePlus, at least so far. And well, there is a huge, just a massive price gap, and $1,300 for the Note 20 Ultra, it's overpriced. Let's face it right now. It is. Versus $900 for the OnePlus 8 Pro. And it just makes me think, if the OnePlus 8 Pro, being so low in cost, if it can even keep up or maybe even be at the tail of the Note 20 Ultra, that could be considered as a win for the OnePlus 8 Pro, because that price gap is again just huge. But of course, we can only know in the comparison, so let's get started. First image, and yeah, not looking especially good for the Note 20 because this is a tie. As I said before, if it's a tie, then it's basically a win for the OnePlus 8 Pro. And disregarding that, even both of them look very nice. The dynamic range, colors, everything looks fairly on point. But the moment we move on to the ultra wide angle image, here I'd say the Note 20 does take a really short lead with the colors, and overall the dynamic range, it's quite a bit better on the Note. And another thing to note, yeah, no pun intended, but yeah, anyways, you'll see that the ultra wide angle camera on the Note 20 Ultra is actually quite a bit wider than the OnePlus 8 Pro. Now we are using the optical zooms on both, and as you might already know, the Note is massive in terms of optical zoom. It's got a 12 megapixel 5x periscope zoom camera, and it really shows. It's got fantastic details overall, and it looks very nice. The OnePlus 8 Pro, on the other hand, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's got some kind of an icy apocalypse vibe going for it. But, it's 2020. Anything can happen, I guess. You could say, in a way, OnePlus is onto something. But crappy jokes aside, let's move on to the 10x zoom on both of them. And yeah, it's partly digital on both again. And yeah, I don't think I need to say anything for the OnePlus 8 Pro. The Note 20 Ultra, on the other hand, is fantastic as usual. I'd say it has basically one of the, if not the best, zoom on any smartphone so far, any flagship at least. Now, I wanted to take this image in particular because I wanted to see how well it could focus, because there's green in the background and in the foreground, so I'm very pleased and almost surprised to say that the Note 20 Ultra did not focus hunt, even for once. And you can basically say that the problems with the focus hunting and inaccurate focusing of the S20 Ultra, it's basically all resolved in the Note 20 Ultra, at least in terms of images. The video comparison is coming out very soon, and there we'll find out if the focusing problem is still there in the video, but images, so far, no problems whatsoever. Now here, once again, it is a tie. I mean, there's no other way to say it, because both of them look almost identical. I mean, I had to recheck the photos myself, but a tie for the Note 20 against the OnePlus 8 Pro is actually kind of a peril, so let's continue on. Now for this ultra wide angle image, well, first and foremost, I just want to say that I know I messed up the angle of the shot a little. I noticed it much later on, but just looking at the common areas in the pictures, well, first and foremost, it appears to be a little bit brighter in the building in the background for the Note 20, but surprisingly not in the foreground, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Yeah, foreground looks very similar on both, but the only complaint I have in terms of the colors on the OnePlus 8 Pro is the leaves in some of the areas look very blue, and that just looks very unnatural. So for that reason, I'm gonna go for the Note 20 Ultra over here. Now let's talk about the numbers. It's 108 megapixels on the Note 20 Ultra. That's a lot of pixels on a huge sensor, as you can see. But again, that laser autofocus system is beyond fantastic, because man, I didn't even have to wait for a split second before taking this photograph. It just locked onto that little bud, and it's amazing. The focusing is fantastic. It's just as good as the dual pixel autofocus of any other Samsung device that has come out so far. I'm very pleased with how Samsung just fixed this whole thing. The OnePlus 8 Pro, on the other hand, yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on with that thing, because I again couldn't get close enough, and as you can see, I think it's still not focusing on the bud, but that's basically the best thing I could get, so yeah. Alright, now let's move indoors, and Yeah, I have an infamous history of kind of unnecessarily hot conditions, and this is, you could say, it stacks up as one of them because there's just one very harsh light on Valentine. Yeah, don't worry, it wasn't way too harsh for him, but yeah, you can see the OnePlus, it's a mess. There's no other way to say it. It's completely overexposed. Well, the Note is doing an incredible job. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's amazing how well it's controlling the highlights while also giving us ample shadow details overall. I'm really impressed with the Note on this one at least. Now, I was so surprised with how badly the OnePlus processed the image. I took another one. It seems to have improved in the highlight control area, but still, it's just not as good as the Note. The balance of contrast and colors overall on the Note, it's still, in my opinion at least, far superior. Okay, now, shall we just harshen these conditions a little bit more? Because why not? I mean, you're paying $1,300. Harsh conditions are what this phone should be built for. And yeah, it shows. I mean, you can see the Note 20 Ultra is handling the lens flare just unbelievably well. I just took a single photograph on this one. The OnePlus 8 Pro, on the other hand, it's blowing out the highlights and the lens is flaring like crazy. It's a mess. There's no other way to say it. And I am thoroughly impressed with just how good it looks on the Note. I had to take quite a few images to even get a usable one, as you can see. Only when Valentine covers the whole light source are we able to get a barely usable image. And even so, the colors are still off. There's this magenta tint which just looks unnatural, and the whole thing looks very faded, and yeah, not as good as not even close, I'd say. Now this one, I wouldn't call it a harsh condition. I mean, it's not even close to one, but it's obvious that the Note 20 Ultra is doing a far better job. It's a lot more balanced with the contrast. There's a lot more highlight control, and yeah, the OnePlus is just a bang opposite of all of that. It's completely faded. You can see in the upper part of the image, it's very faded actually, and it's also blowing out the highlights. So yeah, definitely a win for the Note 20 Ultra once again. Now this one, I'd say it's a good image on both, but the colors on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it's way too over exaggerated, especially in the blues in the background. The whole texture of the wall is almost gone with that excessive amount of saturation overall, and the red on the controller, it's a lot more pinkish than I'd like, and even like it's not even natural, not even close. The Note 20 Ultra, on the other hand, it does a fantastic job of maintaining the kind of vibrance that most Samsung users like, but also it's actually leaning a lot more towards the natural side, which is, in a way, it's a really good thing. Alright, now another backlit image, and here the two images are characteristically different because the OnePlus 8 Pro is overall brighter, so it's giving us more shadow detail while also blowing out quite a few highlights, and the Note is doing just the opposite. It's maintaining the highlights much better while it is giving us a little less shadows. Now, I personally like how the Note 20 looks. I prefer my highlights to be not as overexposed as on the OnePlus 8 Pro, but it really depends on the person because you could like either of these styles of the images. Now, for this ultra wide angle image, and I'd say that I'm gonna give the win for, I think this is the first time that I'm giving a win to the OnePlus in this whole comparison, because that detail level of the 48 megapixel sensor for the ultra wide angle camera here, it's fantastic. I took a few photos for the Note 20 Ultra just to see if it's even possible to get, even close to the tremendous amount of detail that we can get on the OnePlus. But yeah, to no avail. This is basically the best I could get. And from far off it looks alright, but the moment you zoom in even a little bit, it's beyond recognition just how good the OnePlus looks. Now for some selfies, and here I'd say that I actually like how the contrast looks overall on the Note 20 Ultra. It does crush a little bit of the shadows in my hair, but other than that, I'm gonna go for that. Also, the skin tones do look a little bit better on the Note 20 Ultra. And one more thing that I did notice is that there is a huge amount of grain on my face. At first I thought it was like some kind of texture detail, but no, it's not. Don't get fooled by that. It's pure grain. Just, it almost looks dirty, and I don't know, I don't like it. The OnePlus is really not doing a great job in terms of reducing the amount of noise on my face. Alright, now for a portrait selfie, and here I'd say both of them are doing a fairly good job. I thought I'd give this one a tie, but again, I noticed that there is a tremendous amount of grain, as I said before, and that is just the only reason why I'm picking the Note 20 Ultra here, because other than that, everything else about this image, it's pretty much the same on both. The Note 20 Ultra also has a little trick up its sleeve. Very few phones actually have it. It's night mode selfie, and yeah, you can see it's just fantastic. The results are amazing. As you'd expect, I mean, it's night mode. And yeah, I'd say this one is an obvious win for the Note 20 Ultra. It's a real shame that the OnePlus 8 Pro doesn't have a night mode selfie. Now moving on to rare portraits, and yeah, both of them are doing a great job, but the Note 20 Ultra definitely takes the win because if you look at my face, the skin tones are most definitely quite a bit better. There's a lot less sickness on my face than on the OnePlus 8 Pro. But if you look at my t-shirt, there you'll see that the Note 20 Ultra is maintaining the textures and overall details of the shirt much better than the OnePlus 8 Pro. Because on the 8 Pro, it's completely smudged up. Now for this one over here, yeah, again there's that very unsaturated look on my face, which, yeah, not exactly appealing, I'd say. The skin tones on the Note definitely look quite a bit better, and the t-shirt, same story over there. Edge detection is actually very nice on both of them, so no complaints there at least. But once again, the overall image is still quite a bit better on the Note 20 Ultra. Now let's move on to night mode because, let's face it, that is where the real party begins. And for this one, well, both of them do look very similar. And let's face it, this isn't exactly a super harsh condition, but nonetheless, I do think the Note 20 is going to edge out a little because the highlights in the light bar and near the buttons, it's a little bit better preserved than on the OnePlus 8 Pro. And yes, I heard you guys. Some of you wanted an outdoors night mode, so here it is. And well, let's face it, the Note 20 Ultra is definitely better because the shadow detail, especially in the dark areas of the trees over there in the background, it's all much better exposed than on the OnePlus 8 Pro. Even the sky, it looks a lot less gloomy than on the OnePlus 8 Pro, which is actually a little bit more natural. Now, there is a little thing that the Note 20 Ultra can do. You can zoom in all the way up to 5 times to take a night mode photo, and let me tell you, it is the hardest thing that I've done. Well, maybe not the hardest, but it's definitely top 10. Because holding the camera still for like 4 to 5 seconds while the camera takes a nice long exposure, it's near impossible because at 5 times zoom, you can see this is like the best result that I could manage. The others were like indecipherable. It's that bad. So yeah, obviously the use case is limited to some kind of tripod use, but yeah, just something to keep in mind, but also it's something that you can do with the Note 20. The OnePlus, on the other hand, it's got nothing in terms of zooming in when taking night mode photos. Now for this one, it's a little interesting because the Note 20 Ultra just out of nowhere, it decided that it wanted to focus on the ear cup that's behind the one on the front. And yeah, I'm not saying it did a bad job. It's fantastic on the Note 20 Ultra. The image as such, it looks a lot better in terms of dynamic range, shadows, even the detail levels overall. But the only area where the OnePlus 8 Pro, you could say, does a little bit of a better job is in focusing on the forward ear cup. Other than that, I'm going with the Note 20 Ultra. Now of course, I didn't want to level the playing field in terms of focusing, and well, once again, the Note 20 Ultra is doing a better job in terms of dynamic range. You can especially see that in the little light stand in the background. The OnePlus 8 Pro is overexposing a little in the highlights, while the Note, as usual, is doing a fantastic job. Now for this set of images, it's brighter on the Note 20 Ultra. As you can see, there's just a little bit more shadow detail, but the highlights in the background are also a little bit more overexposed than on the OnePlus 8 Pro. And I'd say it kind of depends on the preference, because if you like how the better shadow detail is on the Note 20 Ultra, you can go for that. I am going to go for the OnePlus 8 Pro because, as I said before, I like my highlights being completely under control. Moving on to an ultra wide angle image of, well, the same thing, and once again, the wider field of view is really making the Note stand out a little bit more than the OnePlus 8 Pro, but other than that one difference, I'd say everything else is exactly the same. The detail levels, colors are awesome on both, and yeah, I'm only going to pick the Note because of that extra bit of field of view that we can get, but other than that, I'd say both of them are doing a fantastic job. Now another night mode, and here I'd say the extra contrast that the OnePlus is doing with the image, it's just not playing in its favor. It's really making the shadows look all crushed, and yeah, it's not as good, not even close to how amazingly balanced and just amazing the Note 20 Ultra looks. Now, I did want to address the macro situation of the Note 20 Ultra in particular because the Note 20 Ultra, being a $1,300 device, it doesn't have any macro capabilities whatsoever. Well, the OnePlus 8 Pro is actually a very good reference to that because it has basically one of the, if not the best, macro camera that I've seen in any device so far. And it's quite evident here because we can get insanely close with the OnePlus 8 Pro, and its sensor is very high quality with 48 megapixels. We use the ultrawide camera, and the Note 20 Ultra is a blurred out mess. But that actually got me thinking because I just thought if we were to take a super high resolution 108 megapixel photograph of the same thing and then just crop in, maybe we could kind of replicate the effect of the OnePlus 8 Pro in terms of macro photography. But yeah, well, it works. Sure, it works, but it's still, in my opinion, kind of disappointing that in a $1,300 device, we don't have macro capabilities. Well, the OnePlus 8 Pro, again $900, and it still has one of the best macro cameras that I've seen. So that is it for this little camera comparison, and yeah, I'll admit the Note 20 Ultra did come out on top in a lot of the photos, and that basically proves that the Note 20 Ultra has most definitely been improved in terms of overall camera performance, the processing, HDR, contrast levels even, as compared to the S20 series, because as far as I remember, the S20, in terms of images at least, tied completely with the OnePlus 8 Pro. There were very few exceptions overall, and that basically impressed me on the OnePlus 8 Pro. But now it seems that for $1,300 you do get a better camera overall. Now there is of course the unfortunate lack of the macro camera, and yeah, I don't know if it's possible with the ultra wide angle camera that we have on the Note 20 Ultra, but if it is, I really hope that Samsung can give us the option at least with some kind of a software update. Of course, if it is possible, but nonetheless, I'd say that overall the cameras are a lot more impressive than what we had in the S20 series. I think that the Note 20 Ultra has a camera that is what the S20 Ultra's camera was supposed to be, but with its numerous issues with excessive contrast and amazingly bad focusing, yeah, the S20 Ultra was kind of a disaster in terms of overall camera performance, but the Note 20 Ultra, it basically fixes most, if not all of those issues. Now, of course, I'm only talking about images, but even so, it does a fantastic job, and the consistency, balance, all of those things, they are very impressive, and I'm basically looking forward to all of the other camera comparisons that I've queued up for this one. I'm also going to compare this to the S20 because I want to see exactly how different and how much better the Note 20 Ultra's camera is. But with that said, the winner of this comparison is obviously going to be the Note 20 Ultra. I mean, it costs $400 more. If you didn't expect it to be better, then what the hell is wrong with you? But anyways, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers!